10 worst trades in NFL history.
Sideline 5, Hurdle trying to get in the end zone. They're going to say he's out of bounds.
In the NFL, a bad trade doesn't just cost money.
1.5% of revenue for the NFL.
Most times, it takes the team's respect and throws it out the sidelines. Such trades have cost people their jobs, careers, and respect, while for some, it has given them a second chance to break their losing streak. Here are the top 10 worst trades in NFL history. Trade number 2 was so predictable that you wish it never happened. Starting at number 10, we have John Hadl's move to the Packers. In 1963, John Hadl won an AFL championship with the San Diego Chargers. In 1971, he won NFL Man of the Year.
Returning to the air, Hadl hit a wide-open Harold Jackson, and the game was on ice.
Such winnings highlight a great future, but this was very different for John. Dan Devine, the head coach of the Green Bay Packers, needed a quarterback to put his team out there and was eyeing superstar John Hadl. But after losing to the hated Chicago Bears, he took a panic trade to get John. He didn't consult the Packers executive committee or his personnel staff. If he had, he'd have gotten documented files of John's poor performance and injury at the Los Angeles Rams. Instead, he traded 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and a third, making 5 high draft picks from the Packers to the Rams in exchange for Hadl. At trade number 9, we have an exchange that was of no benefit to both teams. In 2020, the Houston Texans and the Arizona Cardinals made the worst trade of the season when Houston put up David Johnson, a second-round pick, and a fourth-round pick in exchange for the Cardinals' DeAndre Hopkins.
Houston's boxed themselves a little bit into a corner.
Since Arizona wanted Hopkins out anyway and was getting 3 players in exchange for him, they thought they were getting the best offer, while the rest of the NFL felt the Texans were being robbed. After the exchange, Hopkins had just 1 good year and was suspended for consuming performance-enhancing drugs, and Johnson flamed out after all his injuries caved in and sapped him of his skills and athleticism. A bad trade is not always the management's fault. The players sometimes play a role, and Antonio Brown to the Oakland Raiders, like his bad behavior, was a bad trade at number 8. The Pittsburgh Steelers gave up 7-time Pro Bowler Antonio Brown for the Oakland Raiders' 3rd-round and 5th-round draft picks. Everyone knew it was a bad trade because Brown had been fined for several destructive behaviors at the Raiders and was no different at the Steelers. He paid fines for his bad behavior, threatened to retire, and missed multiple training sessions. Before the end of the year, he asked to be released, and they let him go. He never played a regular season game while at the Raiders. When you have Coach Frank Reich apologizing for recommending you, you must have definitely sucked. And at number 7, Carson Wentz was just terrible. The Colts acquired former Pro Bowler Carson Wentz from the Eagles after giving up their 2021 3rd-round and 2022 1st-round picks. Wentz was terrible on and off the field. He couldn't lead the team to win, nor could he lead. He had severe arguments with teammates, coaches, and their assistants. The Colts and Wentz parted after 1 season and traded him and a 7th-round pick to the Commanders in exchange for 2 Day 2 draft picks and a 2nd-round pick swap. At number 6, the Packers defied all odds with Brett Favre's move from the Atlanta Falcons to the Green Bay Packers.
Atlanta has selected Brett Favre.
Favre was never Falcons head coach Jerry Glanville's favorite, and not like he asked to be. He just wanted to play football. Conversely, Glanville wouldn't let him, and opted to trade him for a 1st-rounder they never really needed, which cost them big. Favre played quarterback for the Packers for 16 years and won 3 consecutive MVP awards from 1995 to 1997, while the Falcons never found their missing winning piece. If you ask Jim Irsay, CEO of the Indianapolis Colts, formerly Baltimore Colts, if he believed in the famous saying, like father, like son, in John Elway's trade to the Broncos, he would absolutely disagree with trade number 5. In 1983, John Elway refused to play for the Baltimore Colts because his potential wasn't being utilized.
My preference was play the football.
He was traded to the Denver Broncos for offensive tackle Chris Hinton, quarterback Mark Herman, and guard Ron Solt. This is recorded as the worst trade in history, and here's why. Elway won 2 Super Bowls, a league MVP, and multiple Super Bowl MVP awards. He also became a 9-time Pro Bowler, Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2004. People speculate that all these would have happened if he remained in the Colts, but they lost one of the greatest footballers, his achievements, and got nothing in return. At number 4 is one of the worst trades in Indianapolis Colts history. They traded wide receiver Andre Rison and offensive tackle Chris Hinton for quarterback Jeff George of the Atlanta Falcons. The entire 1994 football season was enough for them to realize their mistake. While George struggled to fit into the team, Hinton was selected to 1 Pro Bowl and was a first-team All-Pro, and Rison became a 4-time Pro Bowler, was chosen to 1 first-team All-Pro, and was assigned to 3 second-team All-Pro teams, leaving the Colts to lick their wounded trade. Coming in as the 3rd worst trade in NFL history is the 8 draft picks for Ricky Williams trade. Mike Ditka, also known as Iron Mike,
See that? That's your IQ, buddy. 0.
tried to save the New Orleans Saints, so he offered the Washington Redskins their 1st, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th round picks in 1999, as well as the 1st and 3rd round picks in 2000 to acquire Williams, who was the 2nd overall pick at Washington. The trade didn't yield any positive results for the Saints, and Mike Ditka was fired shortly after the season, while Williams was traded off 2 seasons later. If 12 players are being pushed out for you, greatness is expected, but Herschel Walker didn't meet up to a quarter of this expectation and therefore takes our number 2 position. To this day, this trade still has the Minnesota Vikings mocked and ridiculed.
They was happy with my performance and what I could do.
Before our number 1 position, it was known as the worst trade in the history of professional sports. The Vikings thought they had found a way to use their condition picks, so they offered 5 players and 8 draft picks to acquire the Cowboys' Herschel Walker. To cut the story short, it yielded no rewarding results, and they had a terrible all-around season. 4 draft picks they traded off contributed to winning 3 Super Bowl titles. At number 1, and the most recent, the Broncos trade for Russell Wilson is the worst in NFL history.
They've known that they wanted to swing big at the quarterback position.
The Broncos pulled out just 4 days before the 2nd anniversary of the announcement that brought in quarterback Russell Wilson from the Seahawks and still had to pay him $124 million. The Broncos traded a 5th-round pick, 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, tight end Noah Fant, quarterback Drew Lock, and defensive end Shelby Harris for Wilson and Ioma Uwazurike. Wilson is currently with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Uwazurike is suspended for violating the NFL gambling policy.
Ioma Uwazurike indefinitely for betting on games last season.
And both football teams were at a loss. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video on the 10 worst trades in NFL history. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more of the best content. And don't forget to check out my video on how good was Terrell Owens.